Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host,
Brett
Gilliland.
Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland. Today I've got Keith Grabowski with me. Keith, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Got some football helmets back there. Got a little Arizona Cardinals, or former St. Louis Cardinals. One of the two.
Right.
That's right. And you are calling in from where today?
I'm in Avon Lake, Ohio, so about 20 minutes west of Cleveland, right up on Lake Erie.
Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Well, welcome to the Circuit of Success. As I said, you are Keith Grabowski. You are Coach and Coordinator Podcast. That's how I met you, through our friend Colby Jubinville. Crazy Colby. He's a good man.
Definitely. Colby's the one who, around 2014, told me I should do a podcast. And my response to him was, what the hell's a podcast? So I guess I figured that out a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're doing a great job with it, man. But before we dive into all this stuff, and I ask a lot of questions, I like to always ask people what's made them the man they are today and helped you get to the level you've gotten to.
Man, I think a lot of it has to do with really my time in athletics, pretty much both as an athlete and then as a coach. I mean, as a young coach, you're still being coached. I mean, really, I think you're always being coached, but you're getting some heavy coaching when you're a young coach as well. And so, my high school coaches, the coaches I worked with, just getting into the game, one of them being my dad. Another was my high school coach, who moved on to a different place, became a head coach. My position coach became a head coach, and then had me working for him. And I learned a lot from him. And then just through all the different places, I think the people I've met and the experiences, I think you learn from everybody. I think you pick something up from everybody, both good and bad. I think you're going to get some good examples and bad examples. I think early on, I had just as much of the bad as I had the good. And I think a lot of it goes to just my upbringing with both of my parents being educators. And my mom was an English teacher. My dad was a science teacher and a coach. And then he did get out of coaching and went into the business world, but still kind of kept dipping his toe into coaching, locally, whatever it might be, semi-pro, 8th grade, like he did it all. So
that's awesome.
And to me, it's always continuing to learn as well. I mean, I feel like every day I'm still picking up something new.
Yeah. Well, you got to be a student of the game, right? If we're not a student of the game, then it's we're probably not going to keep getting better at what we're trying to do.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that's the design behind the podcast and really everything I've been doing. I think Coach and Coordinator Podcast, but really it's the media company behind it, Coach and Coordinator Media, and looking at how do we expand that beyond what we've done with audio. Used to write a lot. Wrote for a number of different football publications and really learned all that entire side of the business. And, I love it because it keeps me close to coaching. It's really helped me develop a network of people at all levels of the game.
Yeah. So talk about Coach and Coordinator Podcast and that media company behind all that. What is it? What are you doing? How are you serving people? And what's the vision of that?
So Coach and Coordinator Podcast, like I said, it started out of Colby telling me I should do a podcast. And he gave me one to listen to that of course it was one that he was on, but it was really good. And, I listened to it. I'm like, yeah, I still don't get it, or how I would use it. But then I still kept thinking about it. And it dawned on me. I was on a recruiting trip and I was recruiting a kid by the name of Deuce Gruden, and, it was in Tampa. And I'm like, could it be? And yeah, it was John Gruden's son. And so I got a chance to meet John. And at the time he was out of coaching, and he had what he called his Fired Football Coaches Association office, which was just, you would see it on TV. Like I remember an episode with Andrew Luck, and it looked like it was small, and it was not a set. That was his actual office in like the back of a bunch of storefront, and he had this little office in back. And we went to dinner that day, and he's like, hey, let's go back. The office is right around the corner, and let's watch football. And, so we're sitting there, and, John will ask a question, but he's moving. So it's, hey, what do you want to watch? Okay, how about Peyton Manning ball fakes from linebacker depth? And so he pulls up, this whole playlist, and we're watching and going through that.
Wow.
So I left there with the idea of like, well, man, if I ever want to step away from the game, I want to keep learning it. And like, he's set up the best learning lab for football on the planet. I can never do that. He's got a guy who works for him full time that he pays to catalog all those things. And he's got all these systems and access to everything. And that's when it dawned on me, like, I could do a podcast. I could talk to coaches and get a look at what is the mindset and the skill set of an elite coach, and then share that with the other coaches. I mean, in a selfish way, it was, when I decided to step away, I always thought I'm going to be back at this in, a few years when my kids are out of high school. But really, I got into this side of it and really enjoy essentially coaching the coaches. So coaching coordinator developed out of that, and kind of with a vision, like at the time, there were a few other coaching podcasts out there. The guys were naming them after themselves. I'm like, I want this to be about the guest. I don't want it to be about me. So I'm not going to name it after me, but I also want to think ahead. Where do I want this to go? And my thought was, I want other people to have a voice in this. I want other perspectives. I'm going to have guest hosts someday, which we've started building in. That first year, I think I did 260 episodes myself, which was part of the design of, a lot of the things I've done in the coach education space, which I've tried to innovate and do some things different. We're always copycatted, and then there was like 10 and then 20 and then all these people doing it. I'm like, well, there's not a whole lot of, barrier to people entering this. Right. And sure enough, after I did it, there were a number of people try, but most of them go about 13 episodes and quit. Because it's not easy. I mean, no. You do a podcast. I mean, you could look at the numbers sometimes early on. It was like, there's only 100 people listening, right? Like, right. We built it though. And to the point now where, I know we're over 15 million downloads since we started this thing. And, wow. Consistently in the top 200 in sports and all these sports categories, and our only audience, those coaches. So it's pretty neat that we have this, very niche area where we're going into, and we have all these loyal listeners.
Yeah. So talk to our listeners that may not be a coach or a coordinator, and they're not even in the football world, but they're a businessman or woman, they're a teacher, whoever it may be, right? So how do we build something that's bigger than yourself? Again, you didn't want to use your name, but like, where are you getting the vision? How can we get a vision, follow that passion of something we have, and just go out and kick ass and build something?
Yeah, I've always told my kids this, and I continue to this day, that go find something that you're passionate about and find a way to do that, and the money will follow. And I think that's really important. And I always, anything I do, whether this is right or wrong, that's where I start with things is, what do I love to do? How can I help people with that? And then I figure that out from there. I know a lot of people that I've been involved with think the other way, like, how do I make money with this? And then try to engineer something that's going to make money. And I really think it's, hook into your passions. If you can do something that you're passionate about, you'll turn around in 5-10 years down the road and be like, wow, this is working out like I had envisioned. It's not going to be overnight. It is going to take work. I mean, it's not been easy to constantly, as I said, at a pace of 260 a year for most of what I was doing. Now I have some guest hosts, but, doing those every single day, being consistent and talking to people. But to me, it was very enjoyable because, I mean, it's funny, like most of what I would do even before I was doing a podcast was I get on the phone and talk to coaches and learn something. And now I do that same thing, hit record, and it's a show. Yeah. So I think, hooking into your passions and I mean, sure, you want to look at where does this have the opportunity to make money? I mean, you're going to refine it based on that. But I think if you can find a way to help people and develop a community around people's passions, then everybody's going to win.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the biggest thing, right, is working in your passion to what you said. I mean, I own a wealth management firm. I love getting to do that every single day and working with our clients. I love getting to do this, but you don't always know that. Right. And so I think it's sometimes you just, I don't know if it's, I doubt we got lucky that we're working in our passion, because we certainly could have switched and done something differently. But when you think of the challenges that come from what you do, like how do you overcome a challenge?
I think a lot of challenges come from, I think the biggest ones come from doubting yourself. Like, am I doing things the right way, or is this really going to work? And I think you just have to have that faith that I'm going to do this the right way. And whether it works or it doesn't, I'm going to feel good that I've pursued this to whatever length it has. I've exhausted everything I could to get there. And if it didn't work, then I've learned something from it. But I've learned because I've done it the right way and I've put everything into it. I don't think you can just go halfway in and expect something to work. I mean, to me, all the things I've done, when I look back at it, and it's been a challenge. I think back to my coaching days when I first got into coaching. I remember like being 23 years old, sitting at a coach's clinic, listening to, some Division I offensive coordinator. And I said, I want to be a college offensive coordinator someday. I don't care what level of college, but I want to be a college offensive coordinator. And then it was about, 10 or 12, maybe 14 years later, I was promoted offensive coordinator at Baldwin Wallace College at the time. It's university now. And was with some friends at dinner, and they said, well, what are you doing with this? What's your goals? And like, I had been so used to saying, well, I'm going to be a college offensive coordinator someday. And I actually started giving that answer. I'm like, well, I'm going to be
I am.
I'm here. So I don't know what I'm going to do next. I guess I want to be a college head coach, So there's all that work that goes into it. But I think you're able to look back. It seems like it's a long time, and you're, you might struggle at times. You're going to have adversity. You're going to have challenges. But if you keep going and investing in yourself and investing in the relationships with the people. And I mean, everything you do, I tell my kids all the time, I said, just get used to this idea. You are going to need to serve people. Whatever you're in, there's no way around it, right? You're not going to do anything solo that you're still not serving people in some way. So get good at that. Get good at serving people and being in tune with what they need and want. And I think you're going to find a way to win.
Yeah. I mean, the game is obviously changing, right, with sports today. I mean, what are you finding that now coaches have to deal with that they weren't dealing with 5 years ago? And that obviously transfer portal, you got NIL. I mean, it's just all this craziness going on right now. But what are you seeing?
It always seems like there's some kind of challenge in football coaching in particular. There was a point where we were challenged by concussions and CTE and all those things, getting in our way with that. And coaches did a great job of figuring out those issues. And it's just, it is a very dynamic game, constantly changing. We obviously now the transfer portal, NIL. I was talking to a coach from Oklahoma today, and they're very much having to deal with making sure that they're building strong relationships and that they have plans with their kids because they have open enrollment now. Like basically, I think anywhere you could go, whether the rules are written or not, if the kids don't like it there, they're going to leave. If they don't feel like they're valued there, they're going to leave. So I think there's that biggest aspect of it right now with the transfer portal. NIL is going to expand, and it already has, into the high school level. Right. So I think you need to be thinking about that too. I think the biggest thing the challenges I see today for coaches is I think you got to, in a lot of ways, you got to think like a CEO. You got to have a CEO mindset. Yes, you're a coach, but even if you're at some of the smallest schools, you still have a huge budget you're affecting, whether that's just the athletic budget, or I remember in my first high school job, one of the things I was told in the interview is we need you to have a winning season because we're trying to pass a levy. And we know if we don't have a winning season, we don't pass this school levy. I mean, no pressure there, right? Like,
right. No pressure at all.
I think I do believe, there's been a lot thrown at coaches in a short period of time. So it is a little bit of an adjustment. I could say this, like, it won't go backwards. We're not all of a sudden going to say, NIL is done, we're not doing this anymore, or the transfer portal's gone, we're not doing it. I mean, maybe rules will get tightened up or better defined, but ultimately those things aren't going away. And I think guys who understand how to, adapt like they do during a game, that those will be the guys to do it. You're going to have to adapt within your program. You might not have had to deal with NIL or transfer portal, 5 years ago. But it doesn't mean like, well, we never did it before, we're not doing it anymore. I mean, that's the quickest way out of this. So I think, I think that's true in anything today is you have to adjust. There's so many things hitting us from different angles, even socially, politically. I mean, we don't really try to get involved in that stuff as coaches, but you got to be careful. You got to think about what you say and what you project to your community, because you don't want to be divisive. I mean, I follow politics. I follow everything going on socially, but I don't bring that into my community right now. It doesn't have a place. I think, I see coaches as people who could bring communities together. And the last thing they need to do is start being divisive. Now, I think they need to figure out, how do I work with people? How do I bring people together and see other people, each other's perspective? But I think that's what a team is about. And I think if you're doing well with your team, other parts of your community start at least being affected by that kind of a viewpoint approach.
Yep. What's your goal planning process like when you think about, again, your goals, your dreams, aspirations for you, your family, your business? Like, do you have a process you follow? If so, what's that look like?
Yeah, when I first got out of college, I wasn't a teacher and a coach. I was coaching, but I wasn't teaching yet. And I worked at a manufacturing company. And the guy who had started the business, this was a auto parts manufacturer. I mean, he started as a guy running machines, right, for, pretty low wage, and learned the business and got some deals and built this multi-million-dollar company. And really learned from the time I was there, just a strategic planning process and knowing like, okay, well, here's what we want to do. And then thinking about all the things that go into this. What's the process going to be? What are all the different things that affect this? How do we need to approach those things? What issues might we have? How are we going to approach solving those issues? And then really getting granular about, okay, well, what are the things that need to be done then to accomplish this, and what are the timelines that go along with it? And so I've always kind of taken that approach. I applied that to when I became a head coach, my program, and would look at that every single year. Where are we right now? What's the 5-year plan? How much further down the road did we move this? What do we need to adjust? Always doing a SWOT analysis, thinking about all those things too. I mean, I think all those things that I learned back when I was 23, I just continue to apply. And I've learned other things along the way, but a lot of it just goes back to those early days out of college and learning, the strategic planning process of that particular company, but understanding that I could apply that to football and whatever else I did.
Yeah. It's amazing how much you can apply to sports and business, isn't it?
Yeah, there's huge carryover all the time. I mean, it's all about, like I said, you're building a team, you're serving people. You have the playing field is different, but a lot of the things are the same.
Absolutely. How are you very good at turning it off?
I'm working on it. That's one area I continue to work on. Just trying to be in the moment, be present. I was awful at it when I was a coach. I'd say all the time, like, pretty much when the season started, it was like I was in the Navy getting on a ship to go on a mission, and I was going to be gone. Because even when I was home, my mind was on something else. And I regret a lot of that, not knowing how to handle it back when I was younger and my kids were young. And, I've definitely been impressing those lessons upon my kids to be mindful. I mean, my son, he's in college and he's into meditating and trying to be anchored where he is and focused on what he's doing. You could get distracted, but you can really become obsessed with it too. And I think you have to find ways to step away. I know, a year in football where we were really successful, I came out of that season in just awful shape physically. I went to my doctor and had my yearly physical, and they did I was like in my 30s, did all the blood work, and he brought an EKG into the office and he sent me to a cardiologist the next day and said, you got to make some changes. All this is not good. And I think shutting it off, being able to realize that rest is okay, that it'll actually energize you. I mean, it's not easy as a coach, putting in 16-hour days and thinking I need to watch more film, and I mean, I know now that kind of was silly for me, but you get into the competition of it, like, you want to win. When you get to the college level, even at the high school level, but I mean, you get to the college level, I mean, we do poorly, we might be looking for jobs next year, so all those things come into play. And I think, again, you get overwhelmed by it. Some of that anxiety creeps in, and, you need to be able to step back, take a breath, get away from things, and you'll come back more energized. So I've certainly put more of a focus on taking care of myself, both physically and mentally, with what I'm doing, because it's real easy with what I'm doing right now. I mean, I got a million ideas. I could go out and do those things, but at what cost? Yep.
How do we learn to bet on ourselves? Because I think I have a huge passion around that, of learning to bet on ourselves and trust your gut, right? Have faith that it's going to work out. How would you view that betting on yourself type thing?
I've always bet on myself. I think it's something, I learned from probably my dad, distinctly different than his brothers and my grandfather. And the dynamic there, my grandfather was, he'd be the guy who'd stay at one company and retire after 30 years. And, my dad wasn't, if he wanted to make a change and try something different, he would do it. And so I saw some of that growing up. And, I think it's part of it is, you should bet on yourself, because we're going through this life one time. Right. And, you don't want to get to the end and say, I should have done this. I mean, because I've found, numerous times where, I mean, if you looked at my resume, you would think, boy, you made all these, complete changes, but those were things that, wasn't on a whim, wasn't impulsive. I thought those things through, but I had to get to that point where, okay, I'm making that move now. And I've just found that every time I've done that, it's a little bit scary, but ultimately all of those have worked out for the positive. Even when I've had to face adversity along the line in those, and sometimes those changes maybe come along quicker than you want, because, you're just not happy with where you're at or the progress you're making. But I think ultimately, you have to believe in yourself. And, I was talking to somebody who's in Jupiter, Florida, very, very successful businessman. I don't know, probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. And in our conversation, he brought up that in the Bible, it says 365 times, do not fear, or some form of that. And he's like, there's a reason for that. I'm like, yeah, you're right. And when I look back at it, I've just, been able to say, all right, this is what I want to do. I'm going to take a leap at it. And not every time do I feel I've been successful, but like I said, I've looked at it just like I would a game. Like, okay, what did we learn from this, and what can we do better next time? And what's the plan moving forward? Right. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, there was a business venture that I thought I was ready for, and I took that leap, and I wasn't quite ready. And I went back to football for a couple of years, and then, along that way, learned some things, learned what a podcast was, and decided, in another way, how do I take what I've done so far and apply that to something else? And for me, fortunately, it's all been in football. I've always wanted it to be in football. It still is now. But yeah, I think if you're not going to bet on you, who is? Right.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny you said the fear thing. My next question for you was something I ask almost every guest, is how many of the fears you've put in your mind have actually blown up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
Yeah, none of them do. I mean, right. they really don't. Everything that you go through in your mind ends up being 1,000 times worse. You let it get away from you. That's what I said. Awful. Like now, being able to practice mindfulness, being able to say, I'm gonna step away from this for 15 minutes. I'm gonna get outside. I'm gonna take a walk and think things through. And I'm not gonna put the earbuds in. And I think it's there's something with being mindful and moving at the same time that's just very helpful to me too, to get some clarity and to be able, I think, step away from it and say, okay, what's the worst that can happen here? It's not really going to get to this level.
Yeah.
And I think most of those are, like I said, fear. And to me, the easy thing is, to go back to what John told me, and do not fear. It'll work out. Have faith.
It does, doesn't it? And it's funny. So I was having this conversation of all things with my 10-year-old. I told him I asked that question to people. He's like, no. I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you know what the response is every time? And you just did it. Literally, you kind of chuckled and like, none of them. But it's so true, man. We get all these things. This spot up here between our ears is a dangerous, dangerous place. And I think for me, I've had to learn to talk trash to it, right? And be like, all right, I know what you're doing. Right. I know you're trying to make me worried. I know you're trying to make me not do this thing that I need to go do, or this thing I need to start. This is what you're doing. Right. So do you have any coping mechanisms like that you can share with anybody? Like mine is talking trash to it. Like, what do you do?
Well, like I said, I think the biggest thing for me is if I'm really feeling something getting at me and overwhelming, is just to step away from it, to get outside, to take a walk, to try to, a lot of times when I do that, I try not to put my headphones in, take my phone with me, whatever, to just step away from things. There's so much that's noise in our head right now that does not help with that too, the distractions and the dings on your phone and all the things you can get into. I think that's the biggest thing for me. And I was awful at that when I was coaching. I mean, I think I hated losing more than I loved winning. And I really loved winning. But, a loss to me was, I think the next worst thing was like a death in the family. Like, cause then it was that doubt. It was all those things running through your head. Like, what am I doing? Do I know what I'm doing? Like, God, I must not be a good coach if we lost this game. And, all this negative stuff that comes in your head. I love that. I wish I would have known how to trash talk it back then and taken that approach. Right? Or what I do now and just stepping away from it. Cause that was, I think, the thing I disliked most about coaching was losing. I was awful with it. Like, and it was always like, whether it was a Friday or a Saturday, whether I was at high school or college, I just couldn't wait to get to Monday, and practice was like redemption. Like, okay, we're back at it. But it was all that time in between where I just let all those thoughts run through my head and overwhelm me.
It's a dangerous spot, man. It's a dangerous spot. What, when you look back on your career and where you're at now, is there any advice you would give that guy? Maybe what you just said, but is there any advice that you'd give that guy that's in that process of building something great? Yeah,
I think you got to be willing to be vulnerable and reach out to others who can help you get all the advice you can. Doesn't mean you have to take it. I look at it, going back again, things I did in football. Like if I had a new idea I wanted to implement in my offense, I just didn't go to one source. I went to multiple sources, and then I would sort through, well, what makes the most sense for me? What fits with my philosophy? So you're going to, doing that, you open yourself up to things that, again, could overwhelm you. Like, God, I got all these ideas. I don't know what to do with it now. But I think it's a process then of sorting through and saying, well, what fits me and what can help, right? And I don't have to do every little thing, but I need to do something. So what's it going to be?
Yeah. How you handle the mental side, and it's kind of what we've been talking about right here, but do you have anything maybe from your kid, the meditation, anything like that to be mentally strong?
I'm constantly studying that mental side of it, trying to understand it better. I think what's helped me see that too. I tell my son all the time, I played baseball growing up, but not at the competitive level he does. He's playing at college right now. He's going into his senior year, and I'm like, man, your sport is way tougher than mine. Like, you're standing up there like bleeding in front of everybody. Like, there's a scrum out on the field. Maybe if you're a receiver who screws up, or a quarterback, yeah. But I mean, for the most part, you're toiling in there and grinding. And I said, you're up there all the time. When you do something, it seems like it's just, it's everybody sees it. It's glaring. And, it's something he works on it constantly. And so I started studying it in a lot of ways just to be able to help him as as things have gotten more and more competitive for him. Right. And, I think it's the mindfulness. I think it's, being able to, and it's not easy. Boy, when I started doing meditation, you think 10 minutes doesn't seem like a long time.
No.
Do you know how hard it is to keep your
hours.
mind focused? Yeah, for 10 minutes, like just focus on your breath. And then, it is not easy. I'm still not good at it.
Yeah.
I work at it all the time, but I think those things do help make you mentally strong because you learn to calm your mind and, get clarity on the things that are important, but just clearing your mind, right? Yeah. Clearing your mind, that's a challenge.
Yeah. I love to meditate, and I've been doing it for 10 years, and it is still, to your point, a 10-minute meditation feels like 4 hours to me. I'm like, holy smokes. Like, I look down at my timer, and it's like, oh, you're 3 minutes in. I'm like, oh, boy. I'm like, we got a while to go here. But it's good, right? Because then my mind goes over here someplace, and then I always bring it back to center here. And for anybody listening that doesn't do it, I think it's from a business standpoint and just a life standpoint. I think it's a game changer for sure to get that process, make it part of your daily habit, and do it. What are you most excited? If I had the magic pen and paper right here, and we're going to write down, kind of one of your biggest things you're most excited about over the next, say, 1, 3, 5 years. What are you hoping to make an impact on the world with?
Yeah, I'm really, and I've been working on like, how do I expand what I've done with this podcast? I think it's, it's been successful doing things in the audio world, but, I mentioned before, I used to write all the time for other people and other publications and companies, but how can I continue to build this bigger to affect more people? Those are the biggest things I'm looking at right now, and expanding Coaching Coordinator and its reach and the way that we're able to deliver impactful content and create community for our coaches out there. I think that's the biggest thing is, to me, the next part is creating that community. I think content is great, and but what can you do to bring people in? I mean, it's like I said, forever. Just being a guy in Avon Lake, sitting there on his microphone talking to coaches, you don't realize the impact you have, but then thinking about, well, what can we do more beyond this? I had a friend tell me, a couple months ago, it's like a good friend. It's like, I never listen to your podcast because I don't listen to anything. I got a 5-minute drive to work, and I don't put my headphones in. I'm like, It's like, if you write something, I'll read it. So it got me thinking about, okay, well, I could do more. There's different things I can do. And I've always wanted to do that. I think part of it was, that's all I could do for a long time. 5 years, about 5 years I spent at USA Football, where I brought this podcast over to them. But I couldn't do anything more. I shut down my website. I would do some writing for their blog, but like it kind of just changed everything I'm doing and got me in the mindset of the podcast. And then, now it's been getting around to thinking, how can we expand this? How can we be more impactful, with other forms of content, with community for coaches?
Yeah, love it. If I can, I'm going to share one of my new businesses with you. I've not announced this on a podcast yet, but we are doing Beyond. It's a members-only community, and we're super excited about it because, to your point, what more can we do with the podcast? And I'm in this, town in Illinois, and we've got a platform here, and we've got a great building. I look over here, we're starting construction 2 weeks from today. But Beyond is about going beyond yourself, going beyond your limitations, going beyond that self-defeating thinking. And so we've got a community now of over 50 people that, are paying a monthly membership fee to have access to the space and have access to this community and the things that we're going to do through events and through speakers and all sorts of stuff. It's amazing, right? And I think, to you, people are wanting more in today's world, right? So I think maybe you do that in your town, but it's just something that, again, called Beyond that we're doing here. If people want to learn more, they can certainly reach out to me, but it's just a special group of people. And people, like I said, are wanting more in life, and that's what we're going to be able to give them through a first-class experience. Pretty exciting.
Yeah, I love it. A lot of what you're talking about there, things we're working on. How do we do more for these coaches in this community? Because the network I've been able to develop out of here is amazing. I'll sit there like this weekend watching games. Oh, I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that guy. I know that quarterback. I know his dad. He's a coach. Like, I want to do more with it, right? I want to do more to help coaches.
Love it. Well, where do our listeners find more of you, Keith?
You can find my website. It's coachandcoordinator.com. I think all my contact information is on there. Coach singular and coordinator.com. We're doing a lot there. You can see all of the podcasts we've done. I've started writing more articles on there too. Just a lot of things we're getting into to help the football coaching community.
Love it, man. We will send our listeners there through the show notes down below. And Keith, stay with me on here. But, man, really appreciate you being on the Circuit of Success. This is awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks, Brett.